Some Ill-Shapen Quandary, a short story. A shaggy ruin befalls the unwary during the choppy turns of long autumn tide. The trees go grey, the sky changes tune. Some ill-shapen quandary overcomes the shallow man. Unforewarned, ineluctably, a bleak estrangement has settled, at first imperceptible, between myself and my erstwhile, the dark-haired beauty, Bella. I arrive home at the empty weatherboard, sluggish up the steps, ignoring the magnolias, my heart a harpsichord mangled with a pickaxe. It is a gloomy Tuesday. Dear Bella, I am writing in my head. I did not mean those anxious words. But sorry is an inconvenience to a stricken personhood. Somehow, charm and loving eyes drain into a well of shadows. All the prancing of the summer, the picnics, the starry dingles, the little kisses, the blankets by the riverbank knotting daisies into long-intentioned trysts, take on the contours of a dim nowhere. She claims I am mean and unfeeling. She says I am creepy in my underwear. She says my chin prickles her delicate nape. Dear Bella, I try. I do not appreciate your fellow tone. That doesn't work either. Dear Bella, where did it all go wrong? All for a moment there is, Dear Bella, do you know how many sunny Sundays I have sacrificed for you? What does she mean I am irascible and ugly in the grip of contradiction? What about her morning face? What about her appalling taste in sports shoes? What about that drama in the lift? Thus vexed, I am greeted by a silent entry hall. The house is chilly in the shade. Cold draughts seep through stubborn cracks. It all came down to a glass of full-bodied Merlot one night. Bella soffed on the sofa and said unhelpful things. I was rehearsing it again. Among the straining pauses, Bella of the dark-haired beauty reached for another glassful, and I said, Haven't you had enough? She stiffened smartly. I'll decide when I've had enough, thank you, she say. It's your fourth or fifth, I say. So? She pours a big one. I reflect on icy defiance. Really, he insists. Really, she mocks. You're drunk. You're an arse. You're being objectionable. You're being patronising. No, I'm not. Oh, aren't you? Wine makes her lose her shiny happiness. Wine grows a canker in her once uncluttered gaiety. What about her low vitality and monthly waves? What about the way she holds her mouth, just like her mother? I'm going home, she announces. And already I am writing in my head, Dear Bella, I think you have a problem. When words fail, I turn to paper. I will write it out and leave it under her mother's door or in the mailbox and give it a day or two. Should I write, though, Dear Bella, I regret one or two of the things I might have said? I take off my coat. Or, Dear Bella, what sort of tantrum was that today? It is strange, I was thinking, flopping down frazzled in an armchair by the window, how tensions burn like blue sulphur, and yet there is dignity, or more to the point, the petty triumph of being absolutely right, still in all my equations. At this point, though, flopped, there came a light tapping on the door. It echoes on wooden panels with cold distinction against the silent whir. Is that a tapping at the door? It is. I am annoyed. I drag myself up to address an untimely imposition. The armchair holds me. The quandary is interrupted. I only had time to hate my 2 minutes of bitterness alone. I walk down the hallway to the front door, a door heavy and solid with a muffled glass inset in keeping with the era of its old design. Usually there is an outline in bubbles through the glass and I can surmise the caller. This time there is only the subdued Tuesday light. Who taps like a mouse in the shadowy decline of the afternoon? Who has a tender footfall against the ambient drone of the suburbs? Who is invisible through the bubble glass? Opening the door, to my rankled surprise, there is, standing there, a very young girl such that my eyes must go searching downwards to her tiny stature. She is about 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I am incompetent in such estimations. Dressed in a white floral skirt and yellow top, simple shoes, short white socks. Her brown hair has been made irregular in the wind, but might otherwise be bobbed, or whatever that style is called. Then there's her huge, miserable eyes. Ordinarily I might smile, but instead I merely gives, "Hello." Looking upwards, wide and brown, the little girl says nothing but holds up her hands, which are held together in a gentle cup, and when her arms are extended, she parts her fingers in a soft and tender fervour. I am waiting for words. I am struck by her gentle tininess, but I look at her as if to say, "What is it?" Slightly gruff, but she is not going to say anything. Her face is silent and solemn, as if there is nothing for her to explain. This goes on for a lingering second. Then, reluctantly, I make a deliberate decision to look down from her eyes and into the hollow of her palms. I have to frown and stare. My gaze moves back to her face and then again to what it is she is holding. I even glance around behind her. In her hands there is a tiny, minuscule bird, as big as a pill bottle. She seems to regard her gesture as self-explanatory, but I am puzzled. "A bird," I says. It is a youngster. Its feathers are still matted. She nods. "Yes, a bird." "Where did you get it?" I have to wonder. She looks back further down the street. This explains very little. "Why did you bring it here?" Now it was time for her to speak. "I found it," she said, "on the ground, under the big tree." "Why did you bring it here?" I ask again. Her huge, miserable eyes are fixed. She is surprised, perhaps, that I even ask. "You have birds," she says, a bit broken by the obviousness. But it's a fact. When not taking a pickaxe to the harpsichord, I do have a small feathery collection. Principally, I have a parakeet named Horace, but he lives in the back veranda, and how the little girl might know this is an unknown. Bella and Horace hate each other with a passion, but that's another story. "I do," I finally admitted. "Yes, I have birds." And the logistics of the little girl's rendering suddenly made slight sense. She had a bird, I had a bird. Ipso, knock upon my door. She looked at me with blank resolution. Clearly, she figured I'd know exactly what to do. I needed to clarify. "I have a parakeet," I said, "and 2 canaries. The canaries are another story too. I left them with Bella one long weekend, and ever since they'd stopped mating. You work it out. Uninterested in my inventory though, the wide-eyed urchin extended the bird up to me further. I looked at it and said lamely, "It could be a swallow." It obviously wasn't, but I figured it could be. As I said it, I realised how lame it was, because here we are in autumn time, and who has ever heard of an autumn-loving swallow? She didn't balk at the faux pas. The little creature of matted featherings looked chilly and shagged out, but not, I thought, entirely damaged. There was then a long silence. Finally I asked, stymied, "So what do you want me to do about it?" The new quandary took this shape. A, you're going to have to help her. B, I know, but I don't want to. Isn't there another way? A, you could just shut the door in her gorgeous little face. B, yeah, right. You'd never let me hear the end of it, would you? A, true. Perpendicular considerations aside, the new quandary took me to a rare elevation. "I'm pretty busy," I said. The girl stood solid, and the baby bird hugged the warmth of her little palm. I looked down the street. Which one is the big tree, I wondered. Perhaps a nest had shaken loose. Perhaps a branch had got the wobbles. It happened that it was the tree on the verge of the left-hand turn, 6 doors away, which I ascertained, though I knew nothing about it, to be a gnarly sycamore tree. The girl with the blank resolution insisted I follow her there to witness where it had happened. I looked back indoors at my empty abode on this occasion. There is the big hole where Bella used to be. I am already writing, "Dear Bella, a little girl knocked on our door today," because it was a delicate turn of events. I abandoned that letter though, for I could not relate the story without mentioning horrors. Instead, I was soon at the foot of the gnarly sycamore tree, and the dark-eyed urchiness showed me the spot. The tiny bird was ragged, I could see. It didn't prosper from human attention. The obvious inference was that it had stumbled from its nest, and this nest was perched high above us. Probably for reasons of the harpsichord within, I am susceptible when the little girl's eyes somehow question my authenticity among adults. Why am I feeling guilty? "I'm very busy," I insist. She gazes at me again. "Very busy." "I've only just taken off my coat," I complain. It was as though her feeble stare says, "Are you not a man?" So why did I trudge behind her down to the gnarly sycamore tree to see where it happened? Never befriend an empty house. It was a bonza tree, huge, once standing underneath it, robust, and it had an array of convenient arms, now bare in the bare-armed autumn-tide. What sort of swallow fumbles from its nest into the russet leaves and the compost of the year? To be honest, I'm annoyed with little girls. Why must they interfere with dimples and wide eyes in the rugged calculations of the seasons? I'm thinking that, with proper mercy, she ought to have left the tiny lump of feather fluff to perish like the day. I'm a bird keeper. Death is as sure as eggs. But no, I am seriously expected to climb into the gnarly sycamore and restore the feather lump to its quarters, against all the natural odds. A further quandary. I could say to her, "Forget it, sweetie. It's a goner. Here, I'll break its neck," and do the bird a favour and teach her a valuable tutorial. I did think we might take it to a vet, yet the vet would charge me viciously just to do the job without further fuss. Or I could humour her all the way down to her white socks and reaffirm her door-knocking naivety. "It wants to go home," she said, examining again the pill bottle thing in her palm. At which I looked up. The nest was lofty, and while I am not phobic, I would say I am uneasy with loftiness. "I can't climb up there," I say to her, and she is solid once again. I'm thinking, dear Bella, amongst my heroic deeds today, I climbed a gnarly sycamore tree and committed a kindness for a little girl, just to underline what sort of man Bella was missing out on. She once said I was a coward in bed. I could prove I do not shirk my duties. "Oh, right," I said eventually. I'll let the little white-clad do-gooder know I was annoyed, as adults often can be. She was as tender as a Tuesday, and I could be swinging the pickaxe again. And so, with the bird somewhat crumpled in my top pocket, I climbed this gnarly sycamore tree up to the nest of twigs. Many a branch was slippery. My bearings didn't like looking down. I had not climbed a gnarly tree for many years, and even then not often. Yet I strode up the valiant pole even as the sky changed tune again. I placed the miniature bird aloft where it belonged and gave it a Hail Mary. Its condition by then wasn't very joyful. I had a moment in the swaying yonder. Uncannily, the whole world fell into perspective. Love, life, death, stupidity. Tree climbing, I think, is for Kabbalists. I glanced to the ground for only a dizzy second, just to check the girl had seen the deed was done before climbing down again. Walking 6 doors back to my door with the bubble glass, I was still lofty in myself even so, and felt like a happy Boy Scout. I imagined I was now a knight of silver merit in the dark eyes of the little girl, and for whatever reason, this somehow overcomes the chant of the shallow man. Unforewarned ineluctability indeed. We walked up to my empty weatherboard, ignoring the magnolias, just as I was ignoring the futility of our deeds. It seemed a lesson in the hospitality of the world. On the other hand, some nests just can't be feathered again, and it's better to leave a broken fledgling to the wind. Altitude can steady a man's grip. Tree climbing is therapy for the earthbound man. Feeling smooth, I asked the girl if she would like to have a conversation with well-feathered Horace on the back veranda, for I had taught him a word or two to pass the choppy turns. Most notably, I had taught him the candid phrase, "Bella is hot," which drove Bella hot with rage. There were also the loveless canaries. The young girl was most delighted and nodded her bob-haired head and smiled as if she definitely would. I took her round the back way, through the side gate. "What is your name?" I asked at last, such that I could introduce her to my parakeet. But she went shy and wouldn't say. "You don't have a name," I suggested. Then I said, "Neither do I. You can call me the Birdman." She stood up on a fixed seating to see. "But this," I explained, showing her the bird with a name, "is Horace." Her eyes went extra wide. She was a deep-seated bird lover, this lass who had knocked on my bubble glass door in the fizzy Tuesday light, interrupting my one-man miserables. I don't know who she is, but she is silent and solemn, and yet behaves as if there is nothing for her to explain. Her and Horace are instant friends. I presumed she lived nearby and wasn't being missed at home. "Dear Bella," I was composing, And for once I said I could be a taller man, and I told her that among birds of a feather she would be a ravenous raven with her dark-haired beauty. And I would write it out. I miss you. Dear Bella, I remember well the prancing summer, and I regret the gloomy tunes of our declining autumn song. I wouldn't write about this event, the little girl, the tiny bird of matted featherings and little hope, or the gnarly sycamore tree, and how I climbed to expectations regardless. Bella would just yawn, although I might write it, for it offers conciliation better than an armchair. I had attained a new disposition. The little girl and Horace had a long conversation amidst the translations of childhood before she went off home. I would admit my hesitations. I would make dark-haired Bella feel lovely. I would ask her to understand that I did have lofty ambitions. Never mind how she holds her mouth like her mother. I could meet the occasion. I can ascend the valiant pole. I can overcome indecision. I am not as useless as everything about me might suggest. Yet nothing puts a quandary entirely into shape, does it? She claims I am as insensitive as a sock hand. She says it is me that does not know when to stop and what is too much. I would still add at the end of a charming missive, P.S. Horace says you're hot.